Yo, what's up? This is Jay Dennis, and we're back with another Ranked and Reviewed, and today we're going to be looking at a band, alternative rock band that I've been into on again, off again since the mid-2000s when they were kind of like really taking off, and that is Muse. What is this, nine studio albums dating back to 1999 up until their most recent release, Will of the People, that just came out just 2 months ago. And this was one of those bands I was anticipating doing back in August, but life happened, and now I'm back to trying to do these videos a little bit more frequently, so be on the lookout for more of those. So I had a little bit of a challenge doing this band, which, by the way, they're extremely talented. I'm not gonna know the band members' names or anything, but like just the level of talent exhibited by like the front man on guitar and vocals, and then just everything else in between, it's just insane. And I've always thought this band was awesome. Just one of those non-metal bands that I've always enjoyed for a long time, and even have some other friends of mine that are huge metalheads that also speak highly of Muse. I don't think I've ever heard anybody speak ill of Muse. But they've been rather consistent, and I don't want to say repetitive, but only experimenting so much over the years. So it was actually kind of challenging to rank these, but at the end of it, I think I got to where I wanted to be. So from least favorite to most favorite, with maybe a couple that are closely contested, like the lowest album got like a 7.4, and the highest got like pretty much a 9. So quite a bit of a spread, actually, but with different tiers, I guess, they're closely contested. So, and then I'm going to give you my, I didn't write down my top 10. Hold on. Okay, I'm back, and I actually have the top 10 now. But with it being a 9-album discography, and with the top album being kind of top heavy, I kind of want to limit it to 3 songs per album. Otherwise, with some of these ranked and reviewed, like either all my favorites are off the top 2 albums, or most of them are off the first. So I'm going to just kind of limit it to 3 per album. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get into it. Again, really no bad albums with Muse, but I did find that the bottom 2 were less listenable than, say, the others. So at the bottom spot, we actually have their newest album, Will of the People, which is their shortest album, and kind of a continuation of this weird further experimentation of, say, Simulation Theory, which came out in 2018. Will of the People just opens with one of their worst songs, the actual title track. I'm just not a big fan of the chanting or anything. Quality picks up a little bit with Compliance, but don't particularly love it. Same thing with Liberation, just kind of a okay song in terms of like Muse quality. I do like the drop B riffage of Won't Stand Down. Ghost is actually a pretty good song. The guitar work in Kill or Be Killed is solid. You Make Me Feel is another weak Muse track. The best song on the album is towards the end, and this is kind of where the album starts to kind of get a little bit of redeeming value, is towards the end, but Verona and Euphoria are catchy, and they're both solid tracks. But We Are Fucking Fucked, the closing track, it kind of drops down to just that okay thing. So album almost closes on a solid level, but it's just a little too, I guess the word's esoteric. Just a little kind of weird. Not really a big fan of like the less guitar-driven, less alternative-driven sound of Muse. I'm okay with them going electronic, but like once they get into like poppier, more weird, Vocodex-sounding electronic sounds, like, and it's not used properly, then it kind of ruins the quality, and I will never listen to their newest album from front to back ever again. Next up at the number 8 spot is the previous album, Simulation Theory. I like the whole 80s retro thing they were going for, and this album is definitely more listenable than Will of the People, but it's still not one of the Muse's better albums. Partially because it's pretty inconsistent. There's actually like 3 really great tracks on here, including one of my top 10, and that's The Dark Side. I actually really enjoy that song. It's catchy, it's hard-hitting, it's uplifting, and it's serious in a way, so a lot of songs written by artists that are called Dark Side are actually solid, like Blink-182, Crazy Town have songs called Dark Side. Anyway, but aside from that, Simulation's also got some of their weaker tracks. In fact, it's got their worst track, Dig Down, don't like that song. I don't know what the fuck they were going for with that. It just sounds really derivative and contrived, and just like using two synonymous words back to back like that. But Thought Contagion, I've always enjoyed that song. Get Up and Fight's another solid track. Break It To Me, it's got that stanky bass and guitar riff going for it. So I like, musically, sometimes, as much as I love the vocalist, sometimes the hook or the chorus or the way the vocals are mixed doesn't do it for me, but then the music can actually come in and save it, and that's the case with Break It To Me. Propaganda is another one of those songs where it's just like, I don't like the whole repetitive nature of the hook, and that kind of just ruins the song and kind of ruins the album. And then again, Dig Down is just Muse's worst song. But yeah, 3 solid tracks on here at least. Maybe out of 11 readable tracks, maybe 4 or 5, but 3 that I actually enjoy. The best song being the Dark Side. Again, another shorter album and one that I'll probably never go back and listen to from front to back again. Next up at the number 7 spot, this is where the quality starts to jump up to the at least the B- territory. We have their sophomore album, Origin of Symmetry, which I see a lot of Muse fans put this one way up high, and I kind of understand why, but it kind of just comes down to preference of what style of them you enjoy. The album's a little repetitive for me, but there's no like bad songs on here. Listening to it again earlier today, actually, I found it to be pretty easy to listen to from front to back, but it does kind of slow down a little bit towards the end. Aside from Feeling Good, it's actually a pretty solid song. But my 3 favorite songs are like later in the beginning, middle part of the album with Hyper Music, which has like a Rage Against the Machine style riff and mixing tone with it, which I really enjoy. And then best song on the album, of course, is Plug-In Baby, which I think is one of the singles. And one of my favorite songs is Citizen Erased. I love just like that crunchy nu metal guitar riff that goes along with it. But beyond that, you know, again, the album gets a B- for me. It just, even though it's pretty solid for it being their second release, I think it's actually more of a precursor to the much better stuff that was to come. But I would easily listen to Origin of Symmetry much more than the last 2 I just talked about, and I would revisit this album again, and it's a solid part of their discography. Next up, we kind of have a 2-way tie, and I'm going to give the minor disadvantage to the number 6 spot, which is Drones from 2015. I actually did listen to this album when it came out. I rented it at the library. Much like Origin of Symmetry, albeit a little bit better. Kind of just a solid album from front to back, but just there was more high points for me. Although it starts off kind of slow. Dead Inside, although not a weak track, is not one of the better ones. I think Psycho is kind of another one of those generic radio rock sounds with like one of the most overused guitar riffs ever. But it picks up in quality with Mercy, Reapers, which is like the catchiest, the best song on the album. The Handler. I love the lead guitar work on this album is particularly good, especially with songs like Defector and Revolt. Aftermath is a beautiful song, and then The Globalist is this epic 9-minute track, which just really takes you on a ride. I really enjoy it. And beyond that, I don't have a whole lot more to say about this album. Drones is an album that I would come back and revisit and probably listen to from front to back, but it's by no means their best album, but it is pretty solid. And I give to finish off this 2-way tie, I give the slight advantage to their first album, Showbiz. Much like Origin of Symmetry, them writing solid music like this early on in their career really was a precursor of what was to come, but I just kind of feel like they hit the stride a little better with Showbiz. I feel like the catchiness of the opening track, Sunburn, which is one of their best opening tracks, just the piano in that, so potent, so powerful, especially for the year 1999. And then you follow it up with another great single, Muscle Museum, which is catchy in its own right. And then Philip, the third song, I just love that 90s alternative sound that you hear in there. Just the way the chorus is carried, the way the buildup of the verses are, I just really enjoy that. And it really does sound like an album from like the mid to late 90s, because it was, and Muse really showcases that. Cave is groovy. I enjoy the bass work in the song Uno, and then one of the top tracks on the album is Overdue. Beyond that, other tracks are, solid enough. Some of them are a little forgettable, but Showbiz is definitely, of all the albums I've talked about thus far, the one that I would come back and listen to the most from front to back. And now we kind of get onto this next tier of quality as we jump up to the number 4 spot, which is their 2012 release, The Second Law. I was hoping this album would place this high because this is going to sound kind of fey or whatever. I don't know if I use that word right. I love the fucking artwork of this, but I think this is really when they started to experiment and go more into the electronic sounds, but I think they just did it really great here. But there were some songs on here that just really blew me away. A few of my top 10 tracks are on this album. Although, unfortunately, part of the reason why this album doesn't sit higher is because, kind of like Drones, it opens on a slow note. Supremacy and Madness, even though Madness is, pretty good single, I think it should have been later on in the album if we're talking about sequencing. But Panic Station, really, track 3, it really picks up in quality there. The build-up and guitar work of Survival solid. The chorus to Follow Me is memorable. My favorite song, Animals and Save Me, just really great, hard-hitting songs, but with a little bit of some filler in between there. The vocals of Liquid State are memorable. I love the hooks there. And then it kind of closes with some, I think they're instrumentals. The Second Law is part 1 and 2. Just kind of slows down a little bit there and kind of drags the album down a little bit. But, if we're talking about a concept album, or we're talking about the album as a whole, it's worth listening to from front to back. And definitely, in terms of their more experimental stuff, this is really, to me, one of the stronger albums for sure. And as we get into the top 3, we really start to get into some higher quality stuff. But the number 3 spot, to me, is only marginally better than The Second Law. It's basically a tie, but I'm going to say it's marginally better. And that's their 4th album, Black Holes and Revelations, which is probably commercially or historically like their best, most popular album. My favorite tracks on here are Supermassive Black Hole, which is one of their biggest songs. I just love that kind of like groovy spy movie, like just kind of like shuffle that goes on with it. The chorus kind of makes me feel like I'm listening to like a hard-edged Justin Timberlake album a little bit, if that makes sense. Assassin, I love the speed and the attack of that song. And then Map of the Problematic. What else? City of Delusion, and then Starlight. Starlight's pretty solid, maybe a little overplayed, but still a solid song. But what makes Black Holes and Revelations this high up is this is the Muse sound I kind of prefer, heading towards that more heavy alternative sound. They're not like outright screaming, but like they're playing with like more distortion, sounding good, and just a couple hairs better than The Second Law. But we're still not at the higher pinnacles of their potential, in my opinion. So as we get to the number 2 spot, this might surprise some people because I usually see this album placed lower. We are looking at their 2009 release, The Resistance. I have enjoyed this album since it's come out, but I've only just recently gotten more acquainted with like the full album. Back then, I was only really listening to like the first 3 tracks, Unnatural Selection, NK Ultra, and to this day, those are still probably like my favorite tracks. Uprising is, again, the problem with some of these Muse albums is the sequencing. I kind of feel like they kind of start on a drag, like Second Law, Resistance, Drones, kind of starting on like a slow note. Maybe that's on purpose, but I don't know. I guess I kind of like more of a statement on my openings, but I think Uprising might have been on Guitar Hero also, but I'm just kind of bored by it. I think the quality really picks up with Resistance. It's a very uplifting song. Undisclosed Desire's got a groovy bass line that I really enjoy. Unnatural Selection was always like one of my favorite songs on here. And as I go back and re-listen to it, some of the guitar riffs remind me a little bit of Foo Fighters and System of a Down, in terms of like the pacing and like the style of picking that's used, and like especially like the drumming that accompanies it. And I'm not talking about some fast like Cigarro riff. I'm talking about like, I don't know how to describe it, but just the way the guitar talks in that song, it kind of reminds me of like some Foo Fighters or even some Darren Malkian style playing. which if you can draw the parallels between that, please leave a comment and let me know if you can hear what I'm saying. Listen to Unnatural Selection and try not to tell me that if you're not super familiar with Foo Fighters or System of a Down's discographies, which I've also reviewed on this channel, let me know if you hear it too. And MK Ultra is just one of the catchiest, best songs on there. You got that awesome bridge, that D minor ensemble. It just sounds really fucking good. And then, Exogenes Part 1, 2, and 3. It's just kind of a solid three-part closing. Doesn't necessarily add a whole lot, but it doesn't take away anything either. So I find Resistance to be the easiest to listen to from front to back of all these albums thus far. And while it's not like among their heaviest, I think it's one of their most well put together. And even though I'm not a huge fan of Queen or stuff like that, I think they nailed the symphonic, loud rock opera sound really well. But let's jump way up in quality and talk about the number one album, which is fucking Absolution. No question. Sometimes I go into these rankings knowing what the top album is going to be, but sometimes I'm surprised. Sometimes it ends up being different than I anticipated. Like, that happened recently with my Shadows Fall video. I didn't expect the number one album there to be it. But this one, I just got the most amount of nostalgia for it. I actually own the album. I have good memories to it. And to me, it really captures that sound that I'm super in love with and nostalgic for. That mid-2000s alternative sound. Best guitar work, best vocals, best music overall. And of course, this is like their heaviest album. Heavy in terms of like how Muse can be heavy. But like, it opens with one of their best their best opening track, Apocalypse Please. Just the sense of urgency with that piano riffing and the hard-hitting guitars and just the key that they're playing. And you just really feel the sense of urgency. And I'm talking about the first like full song, not the opening like intro song. And then of course it leads into my all-time favorite song from them, which really captures that classic alternative sound that I love from the early to mid 2000s. And that's Time Is Running Out. You got some of the best guitar work. You got one of the best choruses. You just got this loud, powerful, distorted guitar that's just like, it captures so many decades worth of like, I don't know how they did it with this album. They captured so many different decades worth of sounds and influences in a single album and made it sound original and solid. Like, you just really feel the power behind the guitar playing, and then the lyrics and the drumming and the bass playing and the vocals, of course. It is a solid song, but I usually skip it. But Sing for Absolution, I tend to skip the more slow-paced, kind of like sad-sounding songs. But Sing for Absolution is still a beautiful song, though. Stockholm Syndrome, it picks right the fuck back up with more heavy guitar riffage that's like memorable and catchy immediately, with a lot of great not artificial harmonics, but just regular harmonics in between there. Hysteria, one of the most fucking catchy, memorable alternative songs of the 2000s. That epic bass intro, great guitar work, memorable solo. You just can't fuck with. That is a guitar song. That song, if it wasn't, I forget. That should be on Guitar Hero. That is a guitar player's wet dream. Hysteria. That is a fun song. Small Print, another fun guitar song with some great, powerful choruses behind it. And then, this is just like where all the best songs. There's really no weak tracks on here. Not a single song that I would skip. From front to back, this is absolutely the easiest song to listen to. That's why I spent the most, easiest album to listen to. And that's why I spent the most time talking about this one. Because without a doubt, not even close, Absolution is absolutely their best album. So to recap real quick, from least favorite to easily the most favorite, we have Will of the People, Simulation Theory, Origin of Symmetry, Drones, Showbiz, The Second Law, Black Holes and Revelations, Resistance, and Absolution. In my top 10 tracks, limiting 3 per album, otherwise we're just going to mostly be talking Absolution here, are Supermassive Black Hole, Plug-in Baby, Sunburn, The Dark Side, Animals, Save Me. Shit, did I write Save Me twice? I did. Hysteria, Stockholm Syndrome, and Time Is Running Out. So that might have been top 9. I guess if I were to add a number 10, I guess I would do MK Ultra. You know, if you guys are really clamoring hard for my 10th favorite song, I suppose it'd be that one. But thanks for listening. Comment below what you agree or disagree with. Do I have Muse all right or all wrong? Again, it kind of took me some effort to get through this one. I enjoy the band, but I usually don't listen to bands like this on a binge. They're kind of like, I have to be in a mood for them, but when I do enjoy them, I really do it. But I'm trying to branch outside of just doing metal stuff. I have done regular rock and alternative bands plenty of times on this one, but they just put out a new album, so I wanted to talk about them while they're potent. And again, I think they're an awesome band. I respect the hell out of them, and excellent frontman who plays guitar and sings really well, and excellent pianist too. So let me know what's up. Subscribe, check out the other videos, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.